shout out to Music Connection. We've been there for over 2 decades and keep rocking, and it's a great resource for musicians.
We book bands. You've been at this for a very long time. Take us back to the beginning, how you got started, why you got started.
Yeah.
And we'll pick it up.
Absolutely. So I moved to Los Angeles in the early 90s to be an actor. And I was a member of a theater company where I would pay money to be a part of this theater space. And, it was like $40 a month. And for me, that was a lot of money back then. I was broke. But when I found out that they didn't use the theater on certain nights, I started putting together performance art shows for poets, musicians, dancers, just kind of like an open mic, but people were booked in advance. So I started doing these underground performance art shows in this warehouse theater space. And from that, I started meeting really cool bands. And one day I just called up a Hollywood club and I said, hey, I've got all these unique acts from this show I'm doing at my theater company. Can you give me a night at your club and I'll bring all these people? So that's really how it started. And then from there, I just started putting the word out that I had access to some Hollywood venues and I was booking some bands, and I'm not a musician, so I was happy to lend a helping hand. And long story short, the initial beginnings of the company was basically like a call-in service for local bands in Hollywood. It was kind of like central casting for actors. A band could send me their tape and then have access to all these venues that I already had nights at. So it was a call-in band booking service.
That's what's up. So you kind of like naturally fell into it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, behind the scenes. I had always been, like I said, an actor. I come from a theater background. This was the first time that I was kind of just behind the scenes, and giving artists opportunity really is what it was about in the mid to late 90s. It was like maybe I can make some money to pay my rent, but it was more about like putting the show together and helping a band get on stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the first venue that gave you that shot?
The first one was called Martini Lounge.
Okay.
It was on Melrose and Larchmont.
Okay.
And the club owner's name is Steve Edelson. He's still around. He owns venues like the Jules Catch One. He owns the Los Globos, and he owns a variety of venues. He was the first one to give me my shot, and we had a lot in common. He was from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. And he really kind of gave me a break that I wasn't even really looking for, and hired me to be the day manager at one of his clubs and book bands there. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept doing it. And then I just built the call-in service out of my house, my apartment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're booking bands nationwide. You're also international?
Yeah. So now, and what I'm telling you is from like 1997, 98. We've been around for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are national talent buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So we still help the local band get on stage, but we're buying talent from agents and managers all over the country. So we are nationwide. We've done a few things overseas over the years, but we're primarily in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Portland, Seattle, Phoenix, Sacramento. Those are kind of our major markets, and we've been in some of those markets for the Bay Area. We've been in for over 20 years. Chicago, we've been there for a dozen years. New York, a dozen years.
Okay.
So yeah, it all comes out of here. The assignments get sent to the production managers in those cities, and then they run the shows at night.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you cover a lot of hip hop. What other genres do you cover?
Yeah. So I'm an old '80s rock guy. But I love hip hop. So I've always been into hip hop. And when I started the company way back when, there weren't a lot of promoters doing hip hop, and it also kind of wasn't allowed on the Sunset Strip.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was one of the first promoters that they actually let bring the Wu-Tang guys up to the Key Club and to the House of Blues and stuff. It really wasn't existent, before 2005, really. But we do everything. We do rock, hip hop, R&B, jazz. The past 2 years, we've done a ton of K-pop. The K-pop stuff has brought us larger venues. We've been at this past year we did the Apollo Theater in New York twice. We did the Forum, Madison Square Garden Theater. We did the Chicago Theater. We did the Wiltern. We did the Palladium.
Okay.
So we did all these big famous venues in the last 2 years, and mostly with K-pop.
And that's Korean pop.
Yeah, which is a whole scene, you know, which is just crazy. So we've kind of always followed the trends per se. And like I said about hip hop, I was doing hip hop shows live before a lot of people. Just as they weren't allowed, like people were afraid of it, you know, back 20 years ago.
So speaking of that, I know you got Wu-Tang to the House of Blues. You said they were afraid of it. I understand. How were you able to like convince the owner?
I honestly would have to tell these club owners that, like, look, you know, you think you hear the name Wu-Tang Clan and you get scared, but it's really just a cool crowd, you know. College at that time, it was college kids, and it was just really just chill. And so, you know, we always had to rent a cop car on Sunset and do all that stuff, but they kind of, you know, learned that over the years that this style of music was trending and in the live arena, and it was going to be around for a while. But, you know, like I said, 15, 18 years ago, I had to really sell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So you built an empire. You know, you've been doing your thing. Is there an extension? Are you know, thinking about maybe, hey, we should maybe get into this space, or you guys just strictly?
Yeah, you know, over the years, we've had a retail store. I've been a manager of an artist. We've done merchandising. We've done marketing, and you know, we've tried to do different things. At one point, we had a small record label. But what we've found out is we're really good at what we do. And that's really quickly placing an artist in a venue in a city through, you know, you do offers and paperwork. But so as much as we've liked to expand into different arenas, we found that we're really good at staying in our own lane. And in our lane, you know, we have to go against large companies. So we lose a lot, but we win a lot too. And, you know, for an independent company, we're pretty strong in the club level, you know, talent buying.
Have you ever had like corporate knock on your door and say, hey, we want to buy what you're doing?
Not so much, and that's a good thing, because I'm an independent guy. You know, we were really never trying to sell the company. It's been almost 30 years. We built it from nothing. Right. And, you know, we really haven't had that, which is just fine. You know, I'm not like, well, why not me? We're good. Like I said, we're quietly good in our own lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any like markets that you're trying to tap into? I know you're in the United States, but like, you know, there's a city or a state, you're like, man, we're just trying to.
You know, yeah, some years, you know, we do a lot more than like I think we did 20 shows in New York this year, whereas the year before we probably did 6. So it just changes like every year. We can't really forecast it. And then when we decide that we want to start doing some things in other cities, we always check to see who the dominant promoters are. You know, we're not trying to step on anyone's toes. With us, what happens is an agent says, hey, I'm putting this artist out on the road on tour, send me your offers. So if we can add another city into that pile of offers, it's great, because you make these offers, you send them all to the agent, and the agent comes back and says, well, I can give you Phoenix and I can give you Portland, but I can't give you LA. So the more cities we can throw in the pile, or, you know, the better chance that we get a show. But you have to build those relationships with the venues in those cities.
Gotcha.
And it takes time and it takes trust and, you know, all that stuff.
Okay. Do you have certain artists that, you know, you haven't worked with yet that you want to go ahead and...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always, you know, we've been really fortunate to work with a lot of people who are just like major superstars now, that when we got them on the ground level. But yeah, I mean, there's a long list of artists that we haven't worked with, you know, but we have been fortunate to work with Kendrick and J. Cole and Machine Gun Kelly and, you know, SZA and Georgia Smith. I mean, we've really been able to work with some artists that are just massive now, that are, you know, almost arena acts. So we take pleasure in that we were on the ground level when they broke, and we like that, yeah.
Cool. Is there any other idea? I know you guys, again, manage artists, but how about like I don't know, like people, maybe artists who draw or photographers?
No, not
Is it
some.
just
Yeah, we're pretty much music. I mean, I managed one recording artist for almost 3 years, and that was the only guy I ever wanted to manage, just because I really believed in him, and he's successful now.
Who's that artist?
It was Coda the Friend.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's very
cool.
successful now, and he's an independent artist, and I took pride in that, and that's really the only person I ever wanted to manage. It wasn't really in my blood. We deal with managers every day, and some are experienced and some aren't, and it's it can be difficult.
No, for sure. I'm familiar with Coda and some of his music.
Yeah.
What drew you to him?
So he was really in our system. He was like a local act out of New York that was calling in saying, hey, can I get on this show and that show? And we were like, yeah, you can, but you're in New York. We're like, how are you going to get your tickets sold? How are you going to get people to your show? He's like, don't worry, just give me the ticket link. I'll put it in my Instagram. So we sort of saw that he started building an outreach, and people from all over the country would go see him, even if it's 50 people or 100 people. Like if you're an independent artist and you're from New York, but you have listeners in Los Angeles, and you're able to sell the tickets when people are watching what you're doing, and he was able to do that in different cities. So we knew people were listening to his music, and then it just naturally started growing.
Dope.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I know we covered a lot, in this space right here. Is there anything else that you want to let our audience know about Sean Healy Presents and what's next to come?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like, to the independent artists out there, keep grinding. I say this all the time, but great music will always find its way. If you're making great original music, it'll find its audience, and it'll find its purpose. So I would say to keep grinding. As far as we're concerned, we're always here. We still, extend the olive branch to the local band. We've got a bunch of shows where we're always putting opening acts on. And when you see that, that normally means the headliner is not selling out. So instead of having, the venue be half full or 70% full, we try to get it 100% full by giving opportunity. So we're really big on that. We're really big on helping artists break. And like I said, there's a laundry list of artists we've worked with that have now gone on to big things. And they started on the ground level, and they sold their tickets, and they did all of it, And some of them are major Grammy Award winners now, and stadium acts.
For sure.
So we're here, we're still doing our thing, and we're always open for business for local acts to get on board, and touring acts as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any a New Year's upon us, 2024. Is there anything that we can look forward to? I know you have stuff lined up, but anything dynamic, anything different, or is it just, hey, tap in?
I would just say, follow us at We Book Bands on Instagram. I would say get our newsletters. We send out a couple of newsletters a week. One is an available gigs newsletter for local bands and artists around the country that want to get on our shows. They can go to webookbands.com and sign up. And then we do a national newsletter on Fridays that announces all the shows that we're doing all over the country. And really paying attention to that, because stuff like pops up, like, we could be just sitting here right now, and then the guys in the other room are working on a tour with, a big artist. So stuff pops up all the time. And that really the best way is to stay on our socials and get the newsletters.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier you guys do podcasts in this room. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, obviously live music was the last industry to come back. I mean, literally the last industry. So our industry was completely shut down. Like most people, most business owners in that type of industry, I had to pivot. I had to let people go and bring them back. Obviously everyone came back, but we had to downsize. We couldn't do live events, and that was our bread and butter. So we pivoted to merchandising, and then we did, for a little over a year, we did a Music Business 101 podcast that you can also find on webookbands.com. And it's where I interviewed a lot of artists, agents, managers, record label people. And we were doing it, we did some of them in here when COVID settled down, but the other ones were done outdoors on my back patio at my house, which was our office for over a year. We worked out of there and tried to come up with stuff to do. But yeah, so we've done a few in here, and I might get back into it. I really enjoyed it, and people still watch those podcasts, and they're like, "Hey, man, I learned a lot from that interview," and stuff like that. So we might play around with that again.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. And what's one piece of advice that you would give to an up-and-coming artist or struggling musician that's in the business, trying to, get their chops right?
Yeah.
Well, what's one piece of advice you would tell them?
I would say, and it's layered, but I would say be professional. Show up on time if you book a show. Meet the other artists. Be courteous to the club. Be courteous to the other artists. Be courteous to the sound guy. Tip the sound guy. If you got $10 in your pocket, that sound man's gonna make you sound like $1 million. It'll be the best $10 you ever spent. So tip the sound guy, be professional, don't be late, don't piss off the venue or the promoters, because everyone talks, and just be professional for every show, even if there's 5 people there or 5,000. Just always be professional, because that's what we're looking for, is people that are professional and handle their business and that are drama free.
For sure. And I know you mentioned WeBookBands.com earlier. Could you just drop the other socials?
Yeah. So it's at WeBookBands on Instagram, and our website for concert tickets is shptickets.com, and our merchandising website is shpmarket.com. All that stuff can be found on WeBookBands.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you mind giving a shout out to Music Connection?
Yeah, and here's a story about Music Connection. So Music Connection was the first publication that we ever advertised in.
Nice.
And this is 20 years ago. We would run a little ad and it said "Got Gigs," and it would have our phone number
In the back?
Yeah.
Directory? Okay.
Yeah, in the back, and it said "Got Gigs," and because back then Got Milk was the big, advertising thing. So we did "Got Gigs," and it had our phone number and website, and I don't know, it was $100 an issue or whatever it was, but that was the first advertising money we spent when we started making a little bit of money where we could do that. So we've had a long connection with Music Connection,
That's awesome.
for over 20 years. Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they still send it to me every month, so that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.